April 12th, 2013. I've always considered myself a very logical creature, and I would never put myself into uncomfortable situations, nor would I let the emotions get the best of me, but it wasn't until today where I felt the stable structure of my mind shift a bit. It was all because of her, and I'm damn sure of it. I only saw her for a brief moment in that crowded hallway of my school, but what I did see was enough to make my heart skip a beat. She was of average height and standing at what appeared to be 5'4". Each step she took, the curls in her short brown hair would bounce ever so slightly as if they were in a renaissance of dance. The purple frames of her glasses reflected the light in the fluorescent bulbs in the ceiling, giving off a faint yet distinctive glow. Behind those glasses were eyes of the softest shade of brown that could be worn in the heart of the coldest, most calculative man I knew. The bright floral pattern on her dress stood out from the crowd of bland, unoriginal styles, beckoning my eyes to fall upon the goddess-like figure that the tight fabric was covering. Her head turned in my direction. She flashed me a welcoming smile, showing off her perfect white teeth. In the same amount of time, I saw that she disappeared from my line of sight. I looked behind me if I could find her again, but she was gone. Probably somehow blending in with this, as I said, uninteresting crowd. I haven't been able to think of anything since, which explains this journal entry. It's amazing to think it took this girl only 1 second to destroy my mental barriers I set up to keep everyone out. She was able to enter my mind with ease and inflict some sort of temptation-free psyche on my brain. I must know more about this girl, a person with that much of effect on me must surely be worth my time. April 17th, 2013. Over the course of the last few school days, I've been able to learn more about this girl from a while ago. Her name is Helena, and by now, how others treated her. While we were talking, it seemed like she didn't have any friends. Other students would point in our direction and they would laugh. Others would give us weird looks. Helena told me this was because she recently moved into town and she was a new student of her school. I don't have friends because I find that they only get in the way of my studies. However, Helena seemed a little different. She and I are much more alike, and I'll take her under my wing. At lunch, I brought her to a spot that I normally go. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over myself. The emotion even writing this is making me nervous. A deserted stairwell on the south wing of school is where we decided to go, and that's where we sat down and talked about whatever Helena wanted. Tried to ask about where she used to live, but she kept on telling me that she was uncomfortable telling me even that much information, which strikes me as odd at first. All she could say is that her old neighborhood was gloomy, where there's no fun to be had. She has never been in a relationship either, as they would only get in the way of her musical hobbies. That's what got my attention. She plays electric bass and has even written her own few original songs with such a simplistic instrument in my mind. What I found interesting is that she has done is everything that I've always been meaning to do. She is everything that I want to be. And I would tell her about it. I would tell her about it and she would smile, saying that she would help me make my dream a reality someday. She then gathered her stuff to get a head start going to class. As I got up as well to walk her there, she said that she could do it on her own, and she left. But not without kissing me on the left cheek. As she left, I rubbed that cheek she kissed. My face began to blush. A smile grew on my face. That was the first time in my life I felt like that before. My heart still flutters, merely writing about her once. Hell, I fucking wrote the wrong words without being able to properly express myself. I can't wait to see someone at school tomorrow. I'm excited. I'm excited to see Helena again. April 18th, 2013. Helena and I hung out once again at lunch today. We talked about her music, and that was about it. She seemed very interested in my views of humanity, as they were similar to her own. Nothing especially exciting happened today other than her kissing me on the cheek again, and my attention to her grows each and every day. I can fucking feel it right here, right in my heart. That's why. Why is it now that my emotions are suddenly able to control my thoughts? I told my family about Helena tonight at dinner, as my mother was wondering why I would stare into space frequently, and to be frank, she was kind of happy. She was happy that I found a girl that made me feel amazing, more amazing than I've ever felt before in my life. Even my father, who normally was against dating at my age, was pleased to hear that someone at my school was able to break down my mental barriers. I'm kind of a whack job, as you could probably tell. I smiled as I got my parents' full approval on this girl. Now I can execute my master plan. Oh yes, I can execute this masterfully crafted plan of social intrigue, at least in my high school mind. Asking her to be my girlfriend. Fingers crossed, hopefully it will go well. May 3rd, 2013. Lately, I have been unable to write into my journal because I've been busy spending time with someone. My girlfriend, Helena. I asked her out on April 21st. She accepted my offer to start some sort of relationship, and she kissed me on the cheeks. This time, though, went for the lips. And this time it was with passion. It's something that's been missing from my life, but a passion that I've never experienced before. These past few weeks have opened my eyes to the world, making my old naive ways something odd. I've seen some things, and I've been experiencing things I never heard of. This has been a world of pure purity. My logical ways of thinking have made way for emotions to take change. Everyone still gives me odd looks from time to time, probably because I'm in love with the new girl on the block. But this weekend, I'm bringing Helena over to meet my parents. She's been dying to meet him since we started dating, and I plan on putting on my good suit, and I'm kind of curious to see how that will go. She's a fantastic girl, so I see there being no real issues as long as things go according to plan. May 5th, 2013. Helena arrived at my house shortly after 4 today. I let her into my home, and I brought her to my kitchen where my parents were at. My father was reading the newspaper in stereotypical 1950s fashion, while my mother was doing work on the family laptop. I attempted to introduce Helena to my parents, but all they did was look at us for a brief moment, and then go back to what they were previously doing. I at least asked my parents to greet our guests, but they simply ignored me. Unfortunately, this happens where my typical teenage problems get ignored. So as I have friends over. Maybe it's what inspired my analytical mindset. Because when I was a kid, the same thing would happen. We'd invite parents over, and my parents ignored us for a while until they decided to finally talk to the guests I brought over. If you ask me, parents are gonna be pricks. And most parents are pricks on social limitations, groundings, and all that. My parents are pricks in the sense that they're complete douchebags and don't know social norms. Not like I do either. Father like son, right? I turned my back on my parents to bring Helena to my room. And then my mother decided to talk to us. Oh, you're Helena? She said in an energetic tone of voice. Our son had said so much about you. He's a keeper, right? I'll tell you that much. Just make sure he washes his face each day. He doesn't do that often. Mother, come on, dude, stop it. Just stop it. And that's when Helena began to laugh to herself. My mother would look at my father, who'd then put down his newspaper to talk to Helena a bit. So, how did you and Martin pay you whatever? How much did Martin pay you to come over? My father said, of course, ruining the joke by stumbling over his own words. Nonetheless, he usually made those groaner jokes only to mess them up whenever I brought friends over. I rolled my eyes as Helena again laughed a little more. She said that she came of her own free will and wanted to meet them. Pardon me? My father would reply. She said she's very glad to meet you, Dad, I said to him, of course, keeping my voice nice and high. Oh, I'm sorry, my hearing isn't as good as it used to be, son. After that, I brought Helena to my room to avoid any more corny talk and humor, as we got a chance to talk to each other once again alone. We had a good conversation despite the fact that we could clearly hear my parents talking to one another from the kitchen, and sadly, they weren't saying very positive things. I hate doing that, Martin. Why do we have to do that? It's just a phase. It's just a phase, Angela, and he'll grow out of it, and you'll get used to it. For his sake, you better hope it's a phase. I don't know if I can take much more of this. May 30th, 2013. After having Helena over for dinner a few more times, my parents still insisted on continuing their little dumb joke that... Still, Helena didn't seem to mind, but I was growing very, very annoyed. However, today was very different. When I got home, my parents were sitting at the kitchen table waiting for me. They asked me to sit down so they could talk about something rather important. My mother told me that they were only saying this because they care about me and want the best for me, which is the same line she uses before talking about anything serious, such as my antisocial behavior, apparently, or the fact that they thought that I was a drug addict doing heroin because I happened to focus or space out. Or even when they decided to talk about the birds and the bees. My father cut her off, saying that they wanted me to break things off of Helena. This came as a shock to me. I stood up in disbelief. How dare they say I should end things with the love of my fucking life? My mother told me to sit down so they could explain themselves, and reluctantly, I followed their orders. My father told me that they didn't want me dating a bad influence. He went on to explain the fact that they have noticed odd habits that I've seemed to have started to develop. He told me that since we started to see each other more and more, I've been starting to talk to myself, and I would mumble in a weird tone from time to time. The more disturbing part is that these mumblings were always about her, apparently. Mumblings I don't even know about. They think that she's doing something to me, possibly having me ingest drugs without my knowing. Fucking 1950s mindset, right? They thought that they were turning me into a nervous wreck. I told them that Helena would never do such a thing, that we love each other, and that we perfect for each other. My mother told me that she understands where I was coming from, but she continued to say that this kind of relationship isn't healthy for me. I stood up, basically told my parents to fuck off, and that was the way I saw it. The way that I see it is that I'm in a relationship with the girl of my dreams, and nothing they could say, nothing they could do would change that. I stormed off to my room, and I've been there since. To them, this all probably sounds like mumblings. The hell with them! What do I care? June 19th. 2013. I'm beginning to notice a few things that have been happening to me recently. Not only do my hands twitch occasionally, but I feel like I'm losing myself somehow. I have a tough time finding the right words to say every so often. I'm sure it's nothing too serious, but who knows, maybe some sleep would help me. July 6, 2013. To my parents' display, whatever, I'm still with Helena. However, they seem to have gotten more accepting of the concept of our love. I'll take whatever straws I can grab at this point, because today they even offered to drive me to Helena's for a day. Apparently, my mother talked to Helena's parents. They wanted to see me today, and I smiled faintly, pleased that my parents were over the fact that Helena could be reefer madness all in one go. Maybe even a bad influence. They dropped me off in front of a lovely little home in the suburban neighborhood. The house was white and dark with blue borders around a door and window frames. It was almost painful to look at, as the thing didn't really appeal. The bright shade of the door also seemed to poke my interest, and the house almost blinded me due to these random shifts. However, my eyes readjusted so that I could look at the ugly house and I could see all the details. Of course, it was cozy. It was 2 stories of enough space to hold a family of 4 members. Perhaps Helena had siblings she never told me about, which would be odd because we've been dating for months. I walked into the house, knocked on the door, and moments later, an older man answered the door. He appeared to be in his mid-50s, his hair graying, his face sporting a fatherly mustache. And he wore a plaid button-up shirt, almost like My Name is Earl, but much more entertained and much more reserved, as it was tucked into his jeans. He looked at me and gave me a friendly smile. You must be Martin Walton, right? Wetson? It's a pleasure to meet you, son. He said as he shook my hand violently, with a grip that could only belong to a lumberjack. He led me into the home, and he was telling me that Helena was in her room, which in fact was the last door on the right down the hallway. I was on my way to her room, and then something came out of the bathroom and wrapped her arms around me. I was unsure what this figure was, but before I knew it, and before I even had a chance to look over my shoulder, all I could hear was the sound of boo! Jumping, fucking scared. I was jumped and I scared, and that was until I realized that my assailant was apparently none other than Helena. She looked at me laughing, saying that I am such a scaredy cat, and I turned around and I began to play fight with her. I tapped my arm on her shoulder, simulating punches, and we came to a truce of a tender kiss, almost like a treaty. Nothing important really happened until we sat down and ate for dinner. 4 plates were set around the wooden table like the Knights of the Round Table that King Arthur led. 1 for Helena's father, 1 for her mother, 1 for me, and 1 for her. They served make-it-yourself burrito for dinner because Helena is a vegetarian, so they had a separate bowl of meat that would explain why she didn't eat much when we came over. Her mother had long curly hair, which was the point where I noticed slight wrinkles forming on her face. She was slightly shorter than me, but she had a big enough voice to compensate for that. She sat across me, and Helena's father was to my left. He was quiet, at least until I begun conversation. So, where do you work? Mr. and Mrs. I work as a neurologist, despite the lumberjack appearance I give. Studying on how the brain works is why we do the things we do. Understanding how things work and interconnect to each other could be much more of a valuable tool than those psychologists. Helena's mother would simply glare and look across. And I'm a psychiatrist, Helena's mother said with a low, flushed tone. I work with people who have mental issues, anxiety, and depression. I nodded politely and took a bite out of my burrito. It was a motherly quarrel, and who am I to really judge on how they do things? It was my first time, and it should hopefully make it not my last. Those were some instances of jobs that were for odd people. I began to tell them about myself, my commitment to school, among other things as such as like my family and all that magical jazz. Helena's mother asked me to talk about my relationship with her daughter, and I was taken a bit off guard by that. Did Helena not talk to them about me? Could that be it? Since her father knew exactly who I was, when I answered the door, shaking it off, I began to explain to her my relationship with Helena. How could I describe this to you? It's wonderful. To be honest, she's the reason why I was able to tear down my mental barriers. She's a great listener, she cares about me, she accepts me for who I am, and took Helena's hand in mine. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Her mother and father looked at each other and then turned to me and smiled. Well, her mother said, I'm glad you two are happy. July 24th, 2013. My parents have been asking me about how I and Helena have been, and I keep on telling them that we're doing great, but every time I do, they seem disappointed. Maybe it's my mind messing with me. They're my parents, and they want to see me enjoy myself. It would make no sense for them to be disappointed that my girlfriend and I are doing well. It must be my mind playing tricks on me. August 1st, 2013. Helena's parents invited me for dinner once again. It was very nice of them, and that's for sure. And while eating, they asked me how me and Helena met. I told them that we first saw each other in the halls on April 12th. I made sure to make that very clear. April 12th, 2013. It was actually before first period, in fact, in which Helena happened to say it was her birthday. We do exchanges and glances, and I told him about everything. Her father seemed to be very interested, and her mother simply smiled sweetly and nodded. August 9th, 2013. So I took Helena out on a date tonight. I brought her to a restaurant, and my parents always took me to this when I was a kid, so I figured I would share my nostalgic experiences with her, and hopefully we could generate some conversation. She seemed to enjoy it a lot, and we shared a cheese pizza, and it was delicious! She looked amazing today, wearing the same dress she wore on the first day, and that's the first day I saw her. It was this wonderful night, and it was euphoric, and I'm glad I've spent it with such a wonderful girl. August 27th, 2013. My mother heard me talking to Helena today while she was over to see me for a while. She walked into my room and saw the two of us sitting on the bed talking about whatever was on our minds. She only looked at us for a few moments before bursting into tears and running out of the room. After that, Helena left, and my father asked me to be in the kitchen. He told me that I had to end things with Helena as soon as possible. It's been upsetting him. It's been upsetting my mother. I looked him in the eyes and said that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, and he demanded that I retracted by questioning why he was, I don't know. He just wanted to know why I was doing this, and he kept on questioning me on why, and I simply responded with, you want to know? You really want to know? I'll tell you why. It's because... He stopped me mid-sentence, sat down in a chair silently. He said that he couldn't say, and he told me to go to my room. Just what was that about? Why did he stop himself? Why did he stop me? This didn't make any sense. Things haven't been adding up lately. September 2nd, 2013. Today is our first day back at school. I've met all my new teachers, and I met up with Helena in the halls. We were talking about our new classes when other students began to mock us. They weren't even hiding the fact that they were. They pointed at us and laughed and laughed and laughed. After the whole lunch hour consisted of teasing, I finally had enough, and I stood up and smacked one of the fucking bastards right in the face, leading the taunting, and it knocked him to the ground. Everyone looked at us in shock, and I began to yell at the student I just hit. How dare you make fun of us like that? Grow up and leave us alone, or else I stopped myself, not wanting to make idle threats. I grabbed Helena's wrist and stormed out of the cafeteria where we were having lunch. When I got home from school, my parents demanded to know why they got an email explaining that I got suspended at school for a week. I told them it was because kids were making fun of me and Helena during lunch. I went to my room, slammed the door, or stay home anyways, then go to school again. Fuck school. September 23rd, 2013. I've begun to get very concerned about Helena lately. Her mood has been shifting, and it's been constant. One day she's at her normal self, the next she's quite sad. She's rather upset. She's never had mood swings before like this, so why is this happening all of a sudden? She began to show odd behavior until the day I met her family. Perhaps it has something to do with that. Do her parents not like me or something? Whatever the case may be, I want Helena to be happy, and I'll do whatever I can, or whatever it takes to do just that. October 12th, 2013. I went over to Helena's house as a surprise today. She seemed much happier, but maybe it's because of the fact I came over without her knowing. I gave her 6 roses to represent the amount of months we have been together. She put them on her desk and hugged me tight. She had released herself from my grasp and ran down the hallway, giggling to herself. I, of course, followed her around the house and eventually made it to her father's office down the stairs. I didn't know where Helena went off to, and I thought that she may have hid herself somewhere there, and that's when I began to look for her. There weren't many places to hide, so I checked each and every spot that I could think of. However, I couldn't find Helena. However, I did notice multiple sheets of paper on her father's desk. Most of them were irrelevant, like family reminders, grocery lists. What interested me was on the notepad that was next to the keyboard of the computer. I picked it up and flipped through the pages, and it appeared to be filled with notes concerning something for his work. I began to read through them. July 9th, 2013. Subject appears to be in bad condition. Should have brought to our attention sooner. August 16th, 2013. Subject symptoms are getting worse. I hope it doesn't progress. Otherwise, it could lead to something very serious. August 29th, 2013. We've been conducting more interactive experiments rather than just observing. We won't get anything done by standing around and watching. We need to get more involved in the subject. Otherwise, the whole case could be wasted. September 5th, 2013. Our subject's getting violent. He manages to calm him down, but we fear that he'll retaliate again if we don't carefully manage it. September 13th, 2013. Funding our research is gradually decreasing. The ones who asked us to start this project aren't seeing the results fast enough and are growing impatient. If they don't get what they want soon, I fear our research may have to end. We need to get results as soon as possible. I would have read more, but I heard Helena's father walking down the hallway. I put down a notepad and ran out of the office as fast as I could. Fortunately, he didn't see me. I saw Helena waiting for me at the top of the stairs. She smiled, she extended her arm towards me, pulling me closer for a hug. And even though I wanted to, I didn't tell her about what I saw in her father's office. I didn't want to worry her. October 26, 2013. More strange things began happening to me. I became more anxious, more jittery. I feel like I'm speaking like a drug addict, or like, I don't know. Not only that, but my parents have noticed me sleepwalk, and they've heard me have nightmares from their room. The worst part of it is that those nightmares and sleepwalking incidents have been around the same thing. Helena. I don't tell them that in detail because they'll make me want to end things sooner. I'll be damned if I let them do anything. October 29th, 2013. I approached my parents today about my night terrors. I thought it was about time that they knew what was going on. They seemed to be worried, yet understanding. They asked me if they could help in any way. I told them what they could do. I want you to tell me why dating Helene is a bad idea. That'll help my mind be at rest. The two of them looked at each other and nodded slightly. My mother told me the same excuse she had as before, that she was a bad influence. Not again! I need to know. Tell me. My father grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me. He was shouting at me that they can't tell me, as there were personal reasons why they can't share. Frustrated, I stormed to my room and slammed the fucking door on those cunts. November 16th, 2013. Helena's father is becoming more and more stressed lately. When you ask him about what's going wrong, he says it's nothing, but he doesn't know that I'm aware of his reasons for becoming upset, and it's because of his lack of finances for whatever he's doing his work on. I kept my mouth shut, though. However, I didn't want to upset anyone by letting that information slip out. Besides, Helena seems to have enough to worry because of her father's mood swings affecting her mood swings, leading to a clusterfuck of mood swings. December 3rd, 2013. I took Helena out on a surprise date tonight. With all the crazy things that's been going on, I felt it was ready for a night of relaxation. We need to get away and spend time together. I packed my backpack with dinner and a blanket so that we could have a picnic in the park, stargazing. Long story short, amazing night. Though I don't think any of those stars could be comparative to the shine in her eyes. Helena, December 3rd, 2013. December 25th, 2013. Helena came over unexpectedly today. She showed up, wished me a Merry Christmas, and even though there wasn't any mistletoe, she brought me close for a kiss. She didn't bring me any presents, and I felt bad for not being able to give one to her. But nonetheless, I told her she didn't have to, and I told her that I didn't have to, since her being with me was a gift all on its own. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, walked home, and I was about to invite her in, but I guess she had other things to do with her family today. After all, it was Christmas, and I appreciate her coming to visit, though it really did make my day better. January 9th, 2014. I went over to Helena's house today. She said she needed some comforting and she felt terrible. So I made her some tea and I cuddled with her in bed. She curled up close to me and we sat there in silence for a good 10 minutes or so until she finally said something. I'm scared, Martin. I looked at her with great concern and I held her tighter and I asked her why she was so frightened. I've never told you this, but there are those bad people. They've been doing terrible things to me. I sat up in horror. Something was traumatizing her? Something was happening? I mean, of course that would explain her mood swings and everything, but what could have been happening? Those must have been a result of her being tortured by these people. In that case, those entries in her father's journal could be about her. She continued to talk. You see, I never told you this, but I don't want to worry you. Those people, Martin, they've been trying to get rid of me. What? No, this can't be Helen. I have to do something. I need to show you something right now. I got off the bed and brung Helena to her father's office, but she stopped me before I could leave her room. I would watch my step if I were you. She had a shaky voice, and she came closer to my ear as she continued to speak. They're watching us. I felt a chill run up my spine. They were watching us? How long were they? Were they there? Who are these people? Every room in the house has been bugged with microphones and cameras. They see everything. They hear everything we do, everything we say. They were set up a few days before you first came over. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to be scared, but please forgive me. I had to keep this a secret from you for your own good. I felt myself beginning to choke up. Why hadn't Helena told me this before? I mean, this is something you should tell someone you genuinely care about. I fell to my knees. I haven't done that in years. I cried. Helena knelt down, telling me that everything would be okay. I didn't believe her, but I guess I have to go for now. January 23rd, 2014. I've been getting more paranoid lately. Regardless of Helena, if I'm in Helena's house or not, I can constantly look behind me. When walking down the street, I'm anxious as strangers getting close to me. It's getting harder for me to sleep because I fear that someone's staring at me, watching my every move. It's driving me crazy. I need answers, and I need them now. February 2nd, 2014. Helena's father is getting less stress. However, as he's getting more worried. At the dinner table, he had to leave because he, quote-unquote, didn't feel well. His work's catching up with him, I guess. I waited until after dinner to go in his office to see what's going on. Sure enough, I found more information in his journal. October 3rd, 2013. Our suppliers are getting anxious. They say that we aren't doing our job well enough. To hell with them, I say. They can do their own damn experiments and see what's a stick for themselves. October 12th, 2013. I'm worried that someone's been going through my notes. They seem to have been moved somehow. I want to check in on something in the house. If someone knows what we're doing, it could mean the end of our research. I began to look around me. The entry must have been made the day I first found his notepad. He knows I'm watching. I just hope I hope he doesn't know that I'm here. I had to keep reading to find anything else. December 21st, 2013. Our subject seems to be warming up to us more. This is excellent. This could help us up in the long run. January 2nd, 2014. Appears the subject still in his own little world. Or its own little world. This whole time I've been trying to make it snap out of it. Yet it doesn't listen. Seems that we've gone in a circle and we're back at the beginning. January 24th, 2014. The subject's getting fearful. It seems to be becoming more self-aware of its situation. It's beginning to isolate itself from us. We need to regain its trust somehow. If that doesn't work, I'll have to resort to more drastic measures. I couldn't believe it. Helena's father was conducting some sort of sick, twisted experiment that is completely classified to anyone else. I felt bad for the subject. That's my life. Its life may be at risk. So Helena's father can keep her or his or whatever the fuck he is his job. February 10th, 2014. I've been thinking more and more in the last few note entries I've read from the notepad, along with what Helena said to me around a month ago. When I can't sleep, it's all I think about. The struggle to piece everything together. There's something going on, and to be frank, it's not been easy. The things Helena told me then should indicate. That can't be right, though. They must have some sort of meaning. Wait. If Helena's a subject... I mean, the dates seem to add up, but there's no evidence that it's really her or anything. Regardless, maybe I should talk to Helena about it. She might have more answers for me. February 11th, 2014. I told Helena everything I knew about the cameras and her father's experiments. She simply laughed and seemed amused. She told me that there's no way her father was behind the plot to get rid of her. Which made me think, why did she think she had a plot to get rid of her? As that would be ridiculous. I need to show her all my things I found in her father's office, but her father has been staying at home for the past while instead of going to work. There's no way I can get into his office without possibly getting caught by him. I need to wait to gather more evidence. I merely shook it off, though, as if I was making a joke. February 15th, 2014. I got the flu yesterday. God, I have a headache. But the symptoms seem to be hitting me hard this morning. Both my parents went to work today, which meant that I had to go home alone and care for myself. It was bad enough that I was sick, but now I had to make sure that I didn't get in a worse condition. The worst task is that it seemed it was about lunchtime when I heard a knocking on the door. I gathered enough energy to answer it, and that's when I saw Helena smiling wide at my doorstep. My spirits were lifted. I felt a little better. I let her in and then she said that she heard I was sick. "Since you live so close to school," she said with her usual joyful tone, "I thought I may as well see how you were feeling." I smiled faintly as she asked me to sit down and maybe eat some lunch. I sat on the couch patiently and waited about 7 minutes until she came up to me with a grilled cheese sandwich placed in front of me. "The bread's a little burnt, but I tried snapping some of it off, dear. Hopefully you don't mind." I didn't mind at all. I mean, I don't think I could stomach it, and top slice of bread was a big heart burnt into the spot, and I smiled at her and told her she did a great job, and I begun to eat my lunch as Helena sat next to me. I cuddled close, ever weary that I may infect her. March 3rd, 2014. I went to school today, but I didn't see Helena at all. Usually we meet up and have lunch together, but she was in her usual spots. I went to check, and I hope she didn't catch the same illness as I did. We did cuddle. March 11th, 2014. After being absent from school for about a week or so, I finally saw Helena today after school. It was like my heart leapt out of its chest when I found her. I ran and gave her the biggest hug I've ever given someone in my life. God, we haven't been away for this long. And she giggled. She only went away from me, and she didn't understand how much I missed her. I don't think she ever will. I love her so much, and that's the last thing I want to do is be away from her, because she's just so amazing. March 17th, 2014. So I got invited to dinner by Helena. I joyfully accepted, and we had a fantastic dinner at her house. After the meal, I snuck my way downstairs into her father's office to see if I could find more information about his sick, twisted experiments. However, he was already down there, talking on the phone with someone. I hid behind a corner and eavesdropped on the conversation. "I know it's taking longer than expected, but this is a serious case. Yes, I'm aware." Stop it. Yes, I'm aware it's been going on for... It's been a long... Listen to me, okay? If the subject learns about what's going on too quickly... No, I will not stop saying subject. It's the appropriate term. Regardless, all of the information at once, that will cripple his psyche. And in turn... I understand. We'll discuss the plan of attack soon. Talk to you then. Good day. He hung up the phone and I hurried my way upstairs. Who the hell was he talking to? Whoever it was, it must have been something to do with the wiretap in the house. I must learn more information. March 24th, 2014. Helena's been acting very strange. I've been talking to her and sometimes she won't even reply. She looks at me with a glazed look in her eye, standing without moving a muscle. She almost looks like a zombie. This has been happening very frequently, and I'm getting a bad feeling about it. Perhaps she really is the subject her father's been talking about. Maybe it's because her odd behavior coincides with her experiments that's been going on, and the only way to find out is to check it out, I guess. April 12th, 2014. Helena asked me if I wanted to stay the night at her house. My parents allowed it, and I got my things ready to go to her home. After the usual dinner and some cuddling in her room, we got ready for bed. Helena fell asleep right next to me, her arm resting over my chest. I could only lay there. I couldn't sleep without knowing someone was watching us. I mean, ever since Helena told me that there were cameras everywhere, I've been wary about that wherever I go, her house especially. Looking to see if Helena was fast asleep, I snuck myself away from her room and went down the stairs to where Dad's office was. I opened the door and noticed that the computer was on its screensaver, yet the lights were on. He must have gone to the bathroom, I thought to myself. Looking around, I couldn't find his notebook, and I begun to search frantically for it, as he may be putting it in a hiding spot. While I was searching it, my arm nudged a mouse at the computer, and it was just enough for it to boot up. I looked at the monitor. I didn't know what to think. On screen were multiple different video feeds of what seemed to be inside a house. I didn't think much of it until I saw the disturbing truth of the matter. One of the feeds showed Helena sleeping peacefully in her bed. As I looked at the feed, my mind began making conclusions for itself. There's no way she could be the subject, right? She even said herself her father wouldn't do terrible things. Or could he? I didn't have much time to react as I heard the toilet flush from down the hall, and I ran out of there quickly and I returned to Helena's room to make it look like as if nothing happened. I made it look like as if I was sleeping, though I couldn't, knowing that twisted man is watching us. He is watching her daughter sleep. April 7th, 2014. I begun of thinking of a way that I could tell Helena everything about her father, and she had to believe me. Unfortunately, I couldn't go up to her saying like, "Oh, you know your father watches you sleep at night?" It's so awesome, right? No. I would look like a complete fucking lunatic. Probably already do. Even with this on my mind, I set it aside as it was Helena's birthday soon. In 5 days, in fact. It would be our anniversary, and I wanted to give her the best day ever. I have to tell her after April 12th. That way my assumptions are to be kept away from her for as long as I could possibly do. April 10th, 2014. As an early birthday present, I decided to buy Helena, where we first met. We ordered the same thing, a cheese pizza, and we had an amazing time. She looked absolutely beautiful, taking in my attention and taking my eyes away from the world, leading my eyes to meet with hers. She sweetly smiled and begun to spoke. "That's very sweet of you, Martin." The sound of her loving voice made my heart melt. Hey, it's the least I could do, right? I mean, you managed to spend almost an entire year with me. She laughed at my remark as she put her hand in mine, and we held it tightly. But in all seriousness, though, you deserve it. You're the best girl, and I couldn't do any better than you, Helena. She smiled, she blushed, her face grew bright. It was a nice shade of red. It was adorable. Heck, everything about her was adorable. No other guy would have done this for me, and it's been so great that you did. I've had an amazing time with you tonight, and I felt it's been awesome as a relationship in whole. I love you, Martin. My eyes began to mist over as I used a napkin to clear my vision. I couldn't believe I almost spent a year with this wonderful girl. I love her with all my heart and soul. And in 2 days, I will get the chance to show her how much she means to me. April 12th, 2014. I made my way over to Helena's house around noon. I became very nervous as I didn't want to mess up her special day. My parents went to work in the morning, so I had to take the bus home. When I finally made it there, I put her present under my arm and knocked on the door. What caught me off guard is that the door is already unlocked, slightly opened when I knocked on it. It opened all the way. Curiously, I would enter the home and called out to see if anyone was home and if everything was okay, just in case if there's a robbery or something. I heard Helena's father call back saying that everyone was in the kitchen. I quickly took off my shoes and ran up the stairs, and I entered the kitchen. I saw people I weren't expecting. Sitting at the dinner table was Helena's father and mother, but across from them were my parents. I thought they were at work, but perhaps they wanted to surprise me by coming out to celebrate Helena's birthday together. That sick, twisted fuck. I greeted everyone and asked where the birthday girl was. Martin, about Helena. My body tensed up. I became very worried. What happened to her? My father asked me to take a seat, and I did at the head of the table. In shaky movements, I pulled out my chair and sat down, anticipating the terrible news. There's something you need to know. There's something you need to know, Martin. Helena's father began to speak with a strong voice. You were brought here for a very specific reason. It was so that we could watch your interactions with Helena. We wanted to keep it a secret as to not startle you. What are you talking about, old man? You mean this whole place was just a cell for Helena? What the hell is going on here? Garden, calm down. You need to settle down so we can... Tell me what, Mom? That Helena was just a experiment that her family only saw her as a test subject? I fucking knew that, and you know it. Don't you know that this research was funded illegally? We were the ones who funded this research. It was for your own good. He lowered his head, staring at the ground. My eyes begun to drown with tears streaming down my face. My own parents funded her research. They harmed her. You? You're the ones who gave him the... You gave him the money to her Helena? I could barely form a sentence. I was choking up. I struggled as I felt a knot tying in my throat, one that could not be severed no matter how much I tried to pull it with my jaw. I can't no longer see out of my eyes. They're clouded by tears forming. There was a specific reason for it, Martin. Helena's mother seemed to know too. Was I the only one unaware of this fucking plot? I began to try to pull myself together and listen to hear what these people have done to my loving Joy. We had to make you come visit this experimenting home. It was the only way we could get sufficient data to work with. These experiments could help many others suffering from the same thing, Martin. Helena had to go to make sure that you and others would be safe. Suffering from the same thing? Helena wasn't... She never told me about... No wonder she's always been so happy. It was a mask to the fact that she was a goner from the beginning. When she said to me 2 days ago, that must have been a final goodbye. I felt myself tearing... Oh, fuck. Just fuck. My heart, it felt like it's torn out of me. I'm gonna puke. Where was Helena? This is where Helena once resided. What was she suffering from? Her father looked at everyone as they all nodded. Helena's father gathered a portfolio from the bookshelf behind him, which held out cookbooks and recyclable newspapers. This here contains all the data from her research. I think this will do a better job explaining the whole story rather than hearing it from us, so please give it a look, Martin. He placed it in front of me, and I wiped my eyes at the shirt on my sleeve. I opened the portfolio to whatever it was, and my heart sank as it was revealed to me. Subject name: Martin Stanley Watson. Date of arrival: July 6, 2013. Diagnosis: schizophrenia. Cause of diagnosis: abusive childhood. Symptoms: reduced social interactions, lack of emotional expressions, hallucinations of objects and people. Most reoccurring hallucinations of a young girl, about his age. Most disturbingly, though, he has given her a name, one that we're trying to get used to even now in times. It's been rather hard dealing with it, and it's been rather hard to interact with both of them as a whole, but our subject seems to name his imaginary friend, Helena. And the worst part is, he's trying to date this thing. He is trying to make this girl out to be what he wasn't, trying to make her everything that he is not, and in the end, we'll see what we can find. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, That Creepy Reading, and I would like to give my review on this loving little tale simply known as April 12th, The Mind Story. I'm going to simply label it as April 12th for simplicity's sakes. But nonetheless, this is written by Sshakenbakee, and it's under the copyright of CC BY SA, which means I'm allowed to narrate it and redistribute it as long as I give credit where credit's due. And the credit goes to Sshakenbakee, Sshakenbakee. Give her a round of him or her a round of applause. I'm assuming it's a her by whatever reason. Nonetheless, why don't we dive right into the review of this loving tale of mindfuggery. While I do enjoy the writing, and I feel that the grammar, stanzas, and everything like that was spot on, in the beginning I couldn't help but get a shaky start. This tale is, again, entertaining and enjoyable and an easy read, but here's the real issue. At the beginning, you tend to kind of guess what was going to happen. You kind of assume that when she says, "Oh, I'm everything that he's not," and you notice that the character isn't given any dialogue outside of being treated as a character that is simply there for window dressing, you kind of assume that she has no real semblance. And in my honest opinion, I don't like the way that they treated this Helena character. They didn't use her in any way outside of a damsel for the main character to be. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a feminist or anything like that, but I do feel that if the female character was given any personality, it would be very positive to the story and will make it a much better listen to, a much better read. However, it's not, and we get this. We get the beginning first few paragraphs where I'm sitting there groaning to myself saying, "Oh my god, we get more bullshit, creepy fan fiction." However, due to the length of the story, this once bad idea was actually written so well that I feel it's elevated itself a little bit. For example, the story keeps you intrigued. And even though about halfway through I kind of guessed that Martin was the true person that they're testing, I still wanted to find out how they came to the conclusion that how this would happen, what would happen, and really I enjoy that. But you know what would have made that whole anticipation for how things are going to happen better? If they actually put more love interactions. There are several dates where they do nothing, where the characters don't interact, and maybe if the character wrote in some dialogue between the two, instead of saying, "Well, she had the same views as me," why don't they talk about their views? Maybe have a back and forth like they did at the end where Helena's father and Helena's mother and, Martin's parents are all talking with each other, where they're trying to show off their personalities. Dad trying to be stoic while Helena's father's trying to be all analytical about things, and the mothers are trying to be sweet but understanding. Why don't they give that to Helena? She has no character, and really, she brings the story down. And the sad thing is that her character is essential to the plot, which makes me think that... Nonetheless, I digress. In terms of actual writing, this is actually really good, and in terms of making me invested and enjoying the piece I was working on, I'd have to say they've done an exceptional job. I just wish that the female fucking character was a lot better than it was. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I hate the story, it's just that I see so much potential here, and it's just wasted because, again, the main character is used as window dressing. It's... the best way to think of it is, how could I really give you a positive, awesome, and amazing example? Okay, what if they made Halo, and then they made Cortana say 2 words throughout the whole thing and removed her personality? She's a main character, but she doesn't get to talk, and all she gets to do is turn infected and die. That's it. And to be frank, that's where I feel this story is. So yeah, it's disappointing, but nonetheless, it's a great read. In my total honest opinion, it's a 7 or 8 out of 10, and it's a must read, especially if you're a narrator wanting to get started on your channel. This has been your host at Creepy Reading signing off, and I'd like to say Sshakenbakee. Thank you for providing this story under fair copyright use, and I'll be sure to send my fans over to your website and all that magical jazz.